I never expected betrayal to come with a smile, or that the people meant to protect me would be the first to turn their backs. One moment, I was standing at the top of the hospital stairs. The next, I was tumbling into darkness, pushed by my own sister. I thought the worst part was the fall. It wasn't. It was the way my parents ran to her first, cradled her tears, and called me a liar. But what they didn't see was the small red light in the corner, the camera that caught everything. That was the day everything changed, for all of us. I hadn't seen my sister Vanessa in 3 months, and somehow that still wasn't long enough. As I walked beside her through the sterile halls of Ridgeview Medical Center, the weight of our shared silence pressed down on me harder than the bag of fruit and magazines I carried for Grandma Margaret. Vanessa didn't bother hiding her disdain, never had, really. She moved like someone born into approval, every step poised, every glance laced with unspoken superiority. Me? I was the accident they didn't plan for. "Still playing the saint, I see," she muttered, as we turned the corner toward the stairwell. Her voice was sweet poison, pleasant enough on the surface, but designed to rot you from the inside out. "I'm here for Grandma, not to fight," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I was used to this. Vanessa thrived on confrontation, especially the quiet kind, the kind that left no marks but always drew blood. She scoffed. "Of course you are. Rachel the caregiver, Rachel the favourite. You've always been good at looking good." We pushed through the stairwell door. I preferred stairs to elevators, some childish need to keep moving under my own power, even in hospitals. Vanessa followed, the heavy door slamming behind her like punctuation to her bitterness. "I'm not trying to win anyone's approval," I said, stepping onto the first stair. "This isn't a competition, isn't it?" Her voice was too close. "You were always the shadow, but now you think you get the house, the sympathy, the inheritance?" I froze. "What are you talking about?" Her smile was thin and sharp. "Don't play dumb. You moved in with Grandma, started playing nurse, and suddenly she's rewriting the will. Do you really think it's because you care more than I do?" "I moved in because she needed help. I work from home. It made sense." "You live 4 states away." Vanessa stepped in front of me, blocking the way. "You never do anything without expecting something in return." "I'm not doing this," I said, trying to move past her. She grabbed my arm. "You think you're better than me. You always have." The rage in her eyes wasn't new, but the proximity was. I looked at her hand gripping my sleeve. "Let go, Vanessa." "Oh, what?" she hissed. "You'll cry to Mum and Dad again? They've never believed you. They never will." That struck deeper than I wanted to admit. The truth in her words scraped against old wounds. "Move," I said, voice low. She did, with force. The shove was sudden and brutal. My foot missed the edge of the stair. Gravity did the rest. My body twisted, crashed, slammed against unyielding concrete. The bag burst open somewhere mid-fall, apples and crossword books raining down like absurd confetti. Pain exploded across my ribs, my back, my wrist. My head struck the landing with a sickening thud. For a moment there was nothing but white-hot noise, then footsteps, fast, sharp. "Oh my God, Rachel!" Vanessa's voice rang out, panicked. She slipped. I tried to catch her. "Mom? Dad? Come quick!" I blinked through the blur. Above me, Vanessa clutched her phone like a lifeline, tears already glistening. She crouched just out of reach, perfectly framed in the fluorescent glow. It was a performance. One she'd rehearsed 1,000 times in her mind. "Hang in there, okay?" she said loudly, glancing over her shoulder. "Help's coming." My mouth moved, but no words came. Everything hurt. Then I saw it. A tiny red light blinking steadily in the corner of the stairwell. A camera, watching, recording, bearing witness. And suddenly I wasn't alone. Pain was a scream trapped in my bones. I could barely breathe, each inhale like needles under my ribs. The fluorescent lights above burned through my eyelids, but the sound of hurried footsteps broke through the haze. My parents' voices came next, urgent, worried, familiar. "Rachel!" my mother cried, her heels clacking against the concrete. I opened my eyes, blurry with tears, and saw her rush past me, straight to Vanessa. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, pulling my sister into her arms. "You must be terrified." Vanessa sobbed convincingly, head buried in Mom's shoulder. "I tried to stop her. She slipped." My father crouched beside me, inspecting my twisted body with a frown. "Why would you take the stairs? At your age?" he asked, like I was some foolish child who forgot how gravity worked. I tried to speak. The word broke on my lips. I swallowed hard, tried again. "Vanessa, pushed." Vanessa gasped. "Oh my God, are you really going to lie? After everything?" "She's disoriented," Mom snapped, her concern suddenly replaced with disgust. "She hit her head. You know how dramatic she gets." Dad sighed. "Rachel, this isn't helping anyone." The betrayal hit harder than the stairs. I looked at them, my parents, the people who were supposed to know me, believe me, protect me, but their eyes were fixed on Vanessa, brimming with worry. For her, always her. It wasn't the fall that shattered me, it was this, the way they looked at me like I was the problem, like I always had been. "I didn't fall," I whispered, though it felt pointless. "She pushed me." A new voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" A nurse in pale blue scrubs stepped into the stairwell, sharp-eyed and brisk. Her name tag read, Alicia Torres, RN. She immediately knelt beside me, her fingers cool and confident on my wrist as she checked my pulse. "She fell down the stairs," my mother said quickly. "Her sister tried to stop her." Alicia didn't respond. Instead, she looked between Vanessa and me, her gaze lingering just a second too long on Vanessa's tear-streaked face. There was something calculating in her silence, something that made my skin prickle. Behind her, a younger nurse entered, holding a tablet. "Alicia," she said softly, "you might want to see this." "Later," my mother interrupted. "Our daughter needs help." Alicia didn't move. She glanced at the tablet, then back up at Vanessa. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She looked past Vanessa to the small red blinking light in the corner. Then she smiled. Barely, just a whisper of amusement. I saw it. Vanessa didn't. My breath caught. Alicia turned to the younger nurse. "Page Dr. Chen and call security. I want stairwell footage for the last 15 minutes. Have it sent to administration immediately." My father stood. "That's not necessary. This is a family matter." "No, sir," Alicia said, her voice suddenly steel. "What I just witnessed here is a medical emergency, and possibly more." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You don't understand. She's confused. She's always confused." I looked at Alicia again. That small smile was gone, replaced by something quieter, fiercer. She reached for my hand and squeezed it gently. "You're not alone," she said under her breath. It wasn't a grand gesture, but after years of being ignored, minimized, erased, it was everything. The gurney wheels clicked rhythmically as I was rolled out of the stairwell and down the hallway. My body throbbed in protest with every bump, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. My parents followed closely behind, still wrapped in their own narrative, still doting on Vanessa like she'd just saved me from drowning rather than pushed me under. I caught snippets of their conversation as the nurses wheeled me into an exam room. "She's confused," my mother insisted. "Always has been, even as a child." "She needs rest, not interrogation," Dad added, his voice tinged with irritation. Alicia, walking alongside us, didn't say a word. Inside the room, doctors quickly surrounded me. IVs, blood pressure cuffs, questions I could barely answer. Alicia stayed near my head, her calm presence an anchor. When the commotion slowed, she leaned down and whispered, "I've called for the footage. Just hang on." Footage. The word echoed in my mind like a lifeline. That camera, that little red blinking eye that saw everything. It wasn't just a silent witness. It was hope. A nurse peeked in with a nod. Alicia excused herself and stepped out. Outside the exam room, I could hear the change in Vanessa's voice. No more sobs, just agitation. "Are you serious? That's unnecessary," she snapped. "She's my sister, for God's sake. I tried to catch her." "Ma'am, we're simply following procedure," a security guard replied, neutral and firm. "Procedure?" Vanessa's voice rose an octave. "You people are wasting time." My mother jumped in. "This is a private matter. Our family doesn't need your surveillance." Alicia returned moments later, holding a tablet in her hand, the screen dark. She locked eyes with a tall man in a white coat, Dr. Malcolm Chen, Chief of Emergency Services. Without a word, she handed him the tablet. He tapped it, the screen lighting up with grainy black and white footage. I couldn't see it, but I saw the change in his face. His brows furrowed, his lips tightened. Vanessa noticed too. "What is that? What are you watching, Doctor?" Chen didn't answer right away. He turned the screen to Alicia, who nodded once, subtly. I wanted to ask what they saw. I didn't need to. I already knew. "It's best if we review this in administration," Dr. Chen said calmly. But there was a cold edge beneath his professionalism. "Please come with me." "Wait," Vanessa said quickly. "You can't. This is absurd. I didn't do anything wrong." My parents exchanged glances. Their confidence began to falter. Doubt crept in. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Alicia stepped closer to me. "That camera caught everything," she said under her breath. "We have visual confirmation." My breath hitched. For a second, my heart wanted to believe it was enough, that justice was immediate, that evidence would fix what years of truth hadn't. But then I saw the way my mother's jaw tightened, the defensive curl of her arms as she stepped in front of Vanessa. "She's confused," Mum said again, more desperate now. "Rachel's always been dramatic, even as a child." That was their fallback, their mantra, and they were ready to repeat it until it became reality. My body was failing me, my energy slipping fast, but inside, something sparked. Not hope, not yet, but something close. Alicia and Dr. Chen moved down the corridor with the tablet between them like it carried a ticking bomb. They disappeared through a set of frosted glass doors marked administration, while the security guard stayed posted just outside. Vanessa hovered nearby, arms crossed tightly, chewing at her thumbnail. I lay there, every breath shallow, my body aching in places I hadn't even registered yet. But inside me, something was beginning to shift. A quiet hum of anticipation beneath the exhaustion. The camera had seen it. There was proof. 10 minutes passed, maybe more. Then the door opened again and Alicia emerged, alone. She made a beeline for my bedside, glancing briefly at my parents, who were now seated in stiff silence. Vanessa stood near the corner, visibly agitated. Alicia pulled the privacy curtain halfway around my bed and leaned in close. "They reviewed the tape," she said softly, "but it's more than just today." I blinked. "What?" "We didn't just check stairwell B. We cross-referenced your name and looked into other footage tied to past visits," she explained, her voice low. "And Rachel, there's a pattern." My throat went dry. "What kind of pattern?" Her expression turned grave. 3 months ago, Vanessa shoved you against a wall outside your grandmother's room. 2 months before that, near the water fountain. You tripped, but the camera shows her leg moving out intentionally. Small things, things that were easy to dismiss, until now. I couldn't breathe for a second. "They were all accidents," I whispered, barely able to form the words. "They said I was clumsy. I believed them." Alicia shook her head slowly. "We've been suspicious for a while. A few nurses noticed the tension. One of our techs flagged your name more than once. We didn't have enough to act, until now." A rush of emotions surged through me. Confusion, shame, then a sharp, burning betrayal. Not just from Vanessa, but from myself. For years, I had accepted the pain, written it off, carried the weight of blame because it was easier than fighting. But now, someone else had seen it, really seen it. Outside the curtain, I heard Vanessa pacing. "They're making a huge deal out of nothing," she muttered to no one in particular. "You people don't know our family." Alicia's eyes never left mine. "They're contacting the hospital director. There's a full report being filed. Security will be turning the footage over to the authorities." I looked down at my trembling hands. "They won't believe it," I said, not entirely sure if I was talking about the hospital or my parents. "They never do." "They don't have to," Alicia said gently. "The tape does." That sentence, simple, firm, landed somewhere deep in me. It wasn't just validation, it was armor. I glanced past the curtain and saw my mother's face, tight-lipped, cold. My father avoided looking at me altogether. Vanessa paced like a caged animal, cornered but still calculating. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel like the one on trial. Alicia gave my hand a final squeeze before straightening. "You're not invisible anymore, Rachel. Whatever they tried to bury, it's coming up now." As she walked away, I let my head fall back against the pillow. My ribs still ached, my wrist throbbed. But somewhere beneath the pain, something else stirred. It wasn't just relief, it was the first spark of power. By the time the police arrived, the hospital had already locked down its administrative wing. A formal report was filed, and Vanessa was asked to remain on the premises until further notice. That was the official language. What it meant, in reality, was that she was being quietly but firmly cornered. No handcuffs, yet. Just a tightening circle of accountability. Meanwhile, I was moved to a private recovery room. Alicia made sure of that. "You need space," she told me as she adjusted the curtain. "And separation." I didn't argue. My body felt like it had been used as a crash test dummy, and my mind wasn't far behind. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process the new reality Alicia had dropped on me. My injuries weren't isolated accidents. They were a pattern, a strategy. And someone had finally noticed. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, swapping IV bags. One of them, a gentle, silver-haired woman named Denise, brought me applesauce and water and whispered, "We're all rooting for you, honey." I nodded mutely. Rooting for me. That was new. Outside I could hear the low hum of tension growing louder. I couldn't see them, but I could tell from the cadence, the raised voices, the clipped tones, that my parents were in the middle of a showdown with hospital administration. "She's exaggerating again," my mother insisted. "Always has. There's nothing criminal about a simple fall." "She thrives on drama," my father added. "You don't understand our family dynamics." Then came a voice I didn't recognize. Calm, firm, male. "Sir, we've reviewed multiple recordings. We have a duty to report suspected abuse to law enforcement, regardless of family dynamics." Law enforcement. The word buzzed in my ear. I closed my eyes, tried to shut it all out. But the door to the room creaked open and Alicia stepped inside, tablet in hand. Her expression was unreadable. "Got a second?" she asked. I nodded, shifting slightly in bed. Pain flared through my side, and I winced. She waited until I was still again, then pulled up a chair beside me. "I thought you should know," she began. "There's another layer to this." I blinked. "Another?" She turned the tablet toward me. On the screen was a scanned document, barely legible cursive handwriting across a formal-looking page, a signature I recognized at the bottom, Margaret Evelyn Monroe. Alicia continued. "Your grandmother updated her will last month, officially filed, witnessed, notarized. She's leaving the house, her entire estate actually, to you." My breath caught. "What?" Alicia nodded. "She cited your role as caregiver, said you've been her support system, that you've shown integrity and compassion she wanted to reward." I stared at the document. My name was there, plain and clear. Not Vanessa's, not our parents'. Just me. The house is in the historic district, Alicia added gently. It's worth over 1.4 million. I tried to process that, but my brain felt like it had been dunked in ice water. The noise outside the room grew louder again. Vanessa's voice, sharp and accusatory. My mother's, defensive. My father, unusually quiet. They know? I asked. Alicia gave a small, grim smile. Not officially, but given today's events, I'd bet they suspect something. I looked down at the tablet again. My name, my grandmother's handwriting, my inheritance. And suddenly it all made sense. The bitterness, the coldness, the years of being treated like I didn't belong. They'd been preparing for a future where I got nothing, and Vanessa got everything. Now that future had flipped. Alicia wasn't done. After I stared at the will for what felt like hours, she tapped the screen again and opened another video file. Grainy footage filled the display, black and white, slightly distorted audio, but the figures were unmistakable. Vanessa, standing alone in the same stairwell where she'd pushed me just hours ago. She was pacing, phone pressed to her ear, her body language sharp, anxious. I don't care what it takes, her voice crackled through the audio. Once Grandma's gone, that house is mine. Rachel won't be a problem much longer. My stomach twisted. I'm serious, Vanessa continued. One more accident, just one. That'll scare her off for good. She doesn't fight back. She never has. A long silence stretched between Alicia and me. The video ended, cutting to static. I looked at her, heart hammering in my chest. She said that? I whispered. Alicia nodded slowly. It was from a hallway camera that picks up sound if you're within range, time-stamped exactly 45 minutes before your fall. I couldn't speak. My throat closed around the words. I knew Vanessa resented me. I knew she was manipulative, sharp-tongued, maybe even cruel. But this wasn't a grudge. This wasn't rivalry. This was intent, deliberate, calculated. She wanted me gone. She planned it. The realization settled over me like a wet blanket, suffocating in its weight. I wasn't just the family scapegoat. I wasn't just unloved. I was disposable. The truth punched through years of denial, through every forced smile, every family dinner where I sat quietly at the edge of conversation. Every birthday when my name was forgotten, every holiday where I was background noise to Vanessa's centre stage. They never really saw me. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, not as family. I was a placeholder, a nuisance, an obstacle to inheritance, to legacy, to the perfectly curated family image they clung to so desperately. Tears sprang to my eyes, but I blinked them away. Not now. Alicia sat quietly, letting me process. I turned toward her. Do my parents know about the call? She hesitated. Not yet. We've only shown it to Dr. Chen and the hospital director. I nodded, throat tight. Don't show them yet. Alicia tilted her head. Why? Because they'll still find a way to defend her, I said bitterly. They always do. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. The pain was raw now, exposed. For the first time, I let it rise, let it cut through the walls I'd spent decades building. They told me I was clumsy, I said, that I overreacted, that Vanessa didn't mean it, that I needed thicker skin, but all this time... Alicia reached out and placed a gentle hand on my arm. All this time, you were right. A sob tore through me, silent and shaking, not for the broken ribs or bruises, but for every version of me that tried to earn their love, that tried to believe I mattered. I didn't want the house, I choked. I just wanted them to choose me. Just once. Alicia didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Because deep down, we both knew. They never would have. The knock at the door was sharp and official. 2 uniformed officers stepped into my room, followed by a woman in plain clothes, Detective Serena Morris. Her eyes scanned the space with practiced efficiency before settling on me. "Ms. Monroe," she said, offering a polite nod. "We've reviewed the hospital's report and video footage. We'll need to ask you a few questions." I sat up slightly, pain radiating through my ribs. Alicia stood beside me like a quiet shield. "Of course," I said, my voice thin. Detective Morris flipped open a small notebook. "Can you describe what happened this morning, from the moment you entered the stairwell?" I told her everything. The words tumbled out stiff and mechanical, but steady. Vanessa's accusations, her hands, the push, the fall, the ache that followed, not just physical, but spiritual. Every sentence felt like reopening a wound I hadn't realized was still bleeding. The detective listened carefully, nodding now and then, only interrupting to clarify details. When I finished, she looked toward Alicia. "We have the security footage. It supports Ms. Monroe's account. We've also identified prior incidents tied to this facility's surveillance. It's substantial." Why, that word, substantial, should have comforted me. Instead, I felt numb. Vanessa was still out there, uncuffed, untouched. I leaned back into the pillow, suddenly exhausted. "So what now?" Detective Morris closed her notebook. "We're bringing her in for formal questioning. Depending on her answers and the DA's review, charges could include assault, possibly attempted." She trailed off, perhaps unsure if the next word was too heavy for the sterile walls of a hospital room. "Murder," I supplied quietly. A pause. "Yes." A chill ran through me. The detective excused herself, leaving the officers outside. Alicia offered me water, but I shook my head. My throat was tight, not with fear, but a deeper ache I couldn't name. I turned to her. "They'll still find a way to protect her. They always do." She didn't try to reassure me. That's what I appreciated most about Alicia. She didn't offer false hope, just truth. And then the door opened, and my breath caught. Beneath a cardigan and flannel pajama pants, leaning heavily on a walker, stood Grandma Margaret. She looked pale, thinner than I remembered, but her eyes, God, her eyes, were fire. "Grandma?" I gasped. She shuffled in, assisted by a nurse, and waved off Alicia's protest. "Don't you dare try to stop me. I've been stuck in that room long enough." She came to the side of my bed and took my hand. "I saw the footage," she said, voice rasping but strong. "I told them I wanted to speak to the police myself." My chest tightened. "You don't have to." "Oh, I do," she snapped. "I should have done it years ago." A second knock came. The detective returned with the officers, and upon seeing Margaret, paused. "Mrs. Monroe," Grandma Margaret straightened as best she could. "I need to make a statement." The detective blinked, then nodded. "We'll need to record it." "That's fine." She turned to them fully now, back tall despite the walker. "Vanessa's been hurting Rachel for years. Verbal, emotional, and yes, physical. I've seen it. She's cruel when no one's watching, and we let it happen." The room went still. My mother, standing just outside, stepped forward. "Mother, that's not fair." "Oh, save it, Denise," Grandma snapped. "You covered for her. You ignored Rachel. And now this. This isn't just family drama. This is criminal." Vanessa stood behind them, frozen. For the first time in my life, someone stood up for me without asking permission. And it felt like the earth finally shifted. The silence after Grandma Margaret's statement was heavy, almost holy. Even Detective Morris, so composed minutes earlier, seemed caught off guard by the bluntness of it all. My mother's lips parted, ready to object again, but Grandma raised a finger, trembling but firm. "I'm not done," she said. She turned to Detective Morris. "I've kept something. Recordings. Not legal ones, mind you, but I've had suspicions. I knew Vanessa resented Rachel. But what I didn't know until recently was who helped plant the seed." My breath hitched. "What are you saying?" I asked, voice barely audible. Grandma didn't look at me. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a flash drive, placing it in Alicia's hand. I started leaving my phone recording during their visits, she said. One day, they thought I was asleep. I wasn't. The air in the room shifted. My mother stepped forward quickly, face tight. Mother, whatever you think you heard. I heard enough, Grandma interrupted. You told Vanessa, and I quote, "Don't let Rachel take the house. She doesn't have the strength, she never did. You're the one who can keep it in the family." My stomach dropped. The walls around me blurred, and I gripped the edge of the blanket like it could keep me tethered to something real. "No," I whispered. But Grandma wasn't finished. "You told her Rachel was fragile, that I was old and confused, that no one would believe her if she cried foul. You coached her how to handle me, how to smile and act concerned while making Rachel look unstable." The words rang out, each one a dagger. My mother looked horrified, not with guilt, but with fear, of exposure, of the truth slipping out beyond her control. "I was trying to protect the family," she said quickly. "That house, it's part of our legacy. You know that, Mum." "Legacy?" Grandma scoffed. "What good is legacy when you poison it with lies?" I couldn't look at either of them. My chest felt caved in, like the broken ribs were now pressing inward. "She never loved me," I said, more to myself than anyone. Not really. The betrayal was no longer abstract. It was real, documented, a choice my mother made, not in the heat of anger, but in cold calculation. Vanessa didn't act alone. She was the blade, but my mother placed it in her hand. Detective Morris, steady and calm, took the flash drive from Alicia. "We'll review this immediately," she said. "If what's on here is what you say, Mrs. Monroe, it supports a conspiracy, not just abuse." My mother's hands shook. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious," the detective said, sharply. I turned my gaze toward my mother. She finally looked at me, truly looked, but her eyes held no warmth, just panic, just a desperate scramble to reclaim a story that was unraveling too fast. "I wanted to believe you'd grow out of your weakness," she whispered, as if it were a kindness, "that if I didn't coddle you, you'd become strong." "You didn't make me strong," I said. "You made me survive. That's not the same." There it was, my breaking point, not the fall, not the pain, not even the betrayal, but the realization that I had fought so long to win the love of someone who had never intended to give it. 6 months can feel like a lifetime, or a blink, depending on what comes before. For me, it felt like both. The old Victorian house on Sycamore Street looked different now, even though nothing about its structure had changed. Same wraparound porch, same creaky floors, same ivy climbing the brick archway. But the air inside had shifted. It wasn't a battlefield anymore, it was a sanctuary. Grandma Margaret had moved in with me during my recovery. The doctors originally planned to discharge her into a rehab facility, but she refused. "If Rachel can heal in this house," she told them, "then so can I." She kept her word, and so did I. We found a rhythm, mornings with tea on the porch, afternoons filled with crossword puzzles and doctor appointments. Evenings, she'd sit by the window knitting while I slowly reintroduced myself to work, sketching layouts or sourcing materials online. The bruises had faded, the fractures had mended, but the scar tissue beneath it all, that was still a work in progress. Alicia visited every Sunday, without fail. She'd knock twice, let herself in with the spare key I gave her, and announce, "Your favourite nurse is here with carbs." Always a white box from the bakery near the hospital. Always 2 scones for me, 1 for Grandma and 1 for herself. Lemon poppy seed, our unofficial flavour of resilience. We'd sit on the porch together, trading stories, laughter, and sometimes silence. The kind of silence that feels earned. "I think we've become a real family," Grandma said once, sipping her chamomile. "A strange one, but real." Alicia nodded. "Sometimes the family you make is better than the one you're born into." I smiled. grateful, but I couldn't deny the weight that still lingered in the drawer upstairs. Vanessa had been sentenced to 2 years in prison after taking a plea deal for felony assault, mandatory counselling, restitution, and 0 contact with me without written consent. Still, she wrote, letters. The first one arrived 3 weeks after sentencing, then another and another. Each one addressed in her slanted handwriting, each unopened. I couldn't bring myself to read them. I didn't know if they were apologies or manipulations. And part of me was afraid to find out. They sat in the top drawer of my desk. Proof that healing wasn't always linear. One afternoon, as the late spring sun poured golden light through the windows, Alicia asked gently, "Have you thought about reading one?" I hesitated. Every day, and every day I don't. She didn't push. She never did. That's what I loved about her. Alicia understood that wounds speak in their own time. Some things aren't ready to be faced, I added. And that's okay. It is, she agreed. But don't let them grow roots. Later that night, I sat at my desk, pulling the drawer open slowly. 5 envelopes stared back at me, unassuming, still sealed, still powerful. I picked up the top one, running my fingers across my name, written in Vanessa's hand. Rachel. No slurs, no sarcasm, just my name. I set it down again. Not yet. Instead, I walked down the hallway and stopped in front of the full-length mirror near the stairs, the same stairs where I once imagined I'd never climb again. I touched the wooden banister, now repainted and sanded smooth. I saw myself, not as a victim, not as a survivor, as someone still in motion. This house, once a prize for others to fight over, had become a place of peace. A place I chose to fill with my own meaning, not legacy, not inheritance, but intention. I wasn't healed, not completely, but I was safe. And for the first time, that was enough. It was a Tuesday morning when the email arrived. I'd just finished watering the rosemary in the kitchen windowsill when my phone buzzed. Subject line, a chance to talk. The sender, Denise Monroe, my mother. I stood there for a long time, phone in hand, unsure whether to delete it, ignore it, or throw the entire thing into the sink. Eventually, I opened it. "Rachel, your father and I have been attending therapy. We're working on understanding the damage we allowed. I know it's late, but I'd like to see you. No expectations, just a conversation, when you're ready. Mum." There was no pleading, no defensiveness. That was new. I stared at the screen until the brightness dimmed itself. A part of me wanted to scream, another to weep, but mostly I felt hollow. "Something wrong?" Alicia asked later that afternoon, arriving for her usual visit with scones and sunshine. "My mother emailed," I said, handing her the phone. She read it silently, then handed it back. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think I don't owe her anything," I replied. "You don't," she agreed, then smiled softly. "But maybe you owe it to yourself to hear what she has to say, on your terms." That night, I replied. I said yes, but only under one condition. We meet at Dr. Thompson's office, with her present. If this was going to happen, it would happen where I felt safe. The morning of the meeting, I was nervous, but not broken. I wore a soft navy sweater, jeans, no makeup. I didn't need to perform for her anymore. As I slipped on my coat, Alicia handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it after," she said. I nodded, tucking it into my bag. Dr. Thompson greeted me with her usual warm calm. "You're in control of this meeting," she reminded me. "You can pause, redirect, or leave whenever you need." I nodded. Then the door opened. My parents stepped in. My mother looked thinner, her hair shorter, as though time had been trimmed from her. My father looked older, more tired. "Rachel," my mum said, voice cracking. "Sit," I replied, gesturing to the couch. Dr. Thompson took the chair beside me. For a moment, no one spoke. Then softly, my mother began. We've done a lot of work, with each other, with therapists, with ourselves, and we've had to face some ugly truths. She looked directly at me. I didn't protect you. I protected what I thought our family should be, not what it was. And I'm sorry. It wasn't a grand apology, but it didn't feel rehearsed. That surprised me. My father finally looked up. We believed the wrong daughter, and we chose comfort over truth. Dr. Thompson glanced at me, signalling I could respond. I took a breath. I'm not here to make you feel better, I said. I'm here to decide if anything is possible. We understand, my mother said quickly, and we accept your terms. I looked at them both. This doesn't mean holidays together. It doesn't mean trust is restored. It means I'm willing to see what's possible, but only if you continue doing the work, consistently, with honesty. They both nodded. And Vanessa? I asked. They exchanged a glance. She's trying, my father said cautiously. She's writing, attending sessions. We're not in contact with her right now. That's part of our boundary too. And I sat back. It wasn't satisfying, it wasn't clean, but it was real. After they left, Dr. Thompson placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did beautifully. I exhaled, and for the first time in years, it felt like a full breath. That night, I finally opened the box from Alicia. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, engraved with 5 words, "Family doesn't walk away." A note tucked beneath it read, "Even if you weren't born into it, you deserve one that stays." I ran my fingers over the words, the metal cool against my skin. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving my story, I was rewriting it. The second meeting with my parents took place 2 weeks later, again in Dr. Thompson's office. This time, I wasn't nervous. I was grounded. Not because I trusted them, but because I finally trusted myself. They arrived 10 minutes early, dressed with the calculated casualness of people trying to look unrehearsed. My father held a folder, probably notes from therapy, and my mother clutched a leather-bound journal like it contained the script of her apology. They sat down without waiting for an invitation. Dr. Thompson nodded politely and gestured for me to begin if I wished. "I'd like to hear from you first," I said, folding my hands in my lap. My mother spoke immediately, her voice already shaking. "Rachel, we've been doing so much work, therapy 3 times a week, individually and as a couple. We've unpacked so much of our past, how we failed you, and we did. We know that now." She paused for effect, as if checking whether the words were landing, then her eyes welled with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For every time I looked away, for every time I believed Vanessa because it was easier. I should have fought for you." My father cleared his throat. "I think about it every day," he said, voice husky. "How we justified everything, how we called it normal, family drama. It wasn't. It was abuse, and we let it happen. It would have been moving if I hadn't spent a lifetime watching their performances. Still, I listened. Because something had changed. They weren't just looking for forgiveness. They were reckoning with their guilt, or so I thought. I suppose, my mother continued carefully, a lot of it came from how I was raised. My own mother was cold, distant, and I think I projected that. I just didn't know how to connect with a child as sensitive as you." Dr. Thompson raised her eyebrows slightly. Here it was, the twist I'd been waiting for. My mother, the master of backhanded absolution, was slowly shifting the spotlight from accountability to explanation. From "I hurt you" to "I didn't know better." A subtle shift. Dangerous if you weren't paying attention. But I was. "I wasn't sensitive," I said quietly. "I was scared. And I was alone." My mother's face stiffened. "I'm not blaming," she began. "But you are," I cut in, calm but direct. You want me to understand your choices, your stress, your upbringing, but I was a child. I didn't need you to be perfect. I just needed you to protect me. And instead, you protected an illusion. There was silence. Dr. Thompson didn't intervene. She let the moment breathe. My father exhaled slowly. She's right. My mother turned to him, surprised. Frank, no. Enough, he said. We've done therapy. I've relived it. And I think the truth is, we liked the version of Rachel who stayed quiet, who took the blame. She made life easier. I stared at him. For once he wasn't deflecting. He was finally naming the wound. My mother looked wounded. That's not fair. No, I said. It's honest. She opened her journal, flipping through notes. Desperate for a way to reframe the moment, but there wasn't one. Not anymore. I'm not here to punish you, I said. And I'm not here to soothe your guilt. If this relationship is going to move forward, it has to be on my terms. And that means no rewriting history. My voice didn't shake, my hands didn't tremble. I had spent years shrinking myself to fit into their version of who I should be. I was done. Dr. Thompson finally spoke. I think that's a healthy boundary. My mother swallowed. So, what now? You keep doing the work, I said. And I keep deciding, day by day, whether there's space for you in my life. It wasn't a door slammed shut, but it wasn't wide open either, and for the first time I didn't feel guilty about that. The room felt heavier after I spoke, like the air had thickened around us. My mother sat back against the couch, clutching her journal like it might shield her from the weight of my words. My father stared at the floor, hands folded, jaw clenched. I waited for the defensiveness, the excuses, the polished pivot they had mastered over decades. But what came next caught me off guard. I let it happen, my father said. His voice wasn't loud, but it landed with force. My mother turned to him, her expression startled. I let it happen, he repeated, because I was afraid. My brow furrowed. Afraid of what? His eyes met mine. Of losing her. It took me a moment to realize he meant my mother. I've always known she was strong-willed, opinionated, and when she decided something, it was easier to go along with it than to challenge her, even when I didn't agree. He rubbed his palms together, slow and methodical. I saw what was happening between you and Vanessa. I heard the tone in your mother's voice. I noticed the bruises you tried to hide, but I thought, if I pushed too hard, your mother would walk. And I didn't know how to parent alone. I stared at him, stunned. So you chose silence over me, his mouth tightened. Yes. There was no defense, no excuse, just raw, bitter truth, a truth I had always felt but never heard out loud. My mother's eyes flashed. Frank, how can you say that? I didn't manipulate you. You made your choices. He looked at her, something steely in his gaze. We both did. Dr. Thompson interjected softly. These are the kinds of reckonings that lead to healing, if they're honest. I turned back to them. Here's what I need you to understand. I'm not interested in playing family anymore. No more performative birthdays. No more holiday dinners with unspoken tension. No pretending things are okay when they're not. They said nothing. I want truth. I want accountability. Not just in this room, but moving forward. If you want to be part of my life, you need to show up as people who see me fully, not just as your daughter, but as a person, a woman who deserves more than silence and sidesteps. My mother's eyes filled with tears again. This time, they felt less rehearsed. We want to, truly. I didn't reply. Instead, I looked at my father. Do you understand what your silence cost me? He nodded slowly. I do now, and I'm sorry. Words are a start, I said, but what matters is what comes next. Dr. Thompson smiled gently. That's exactly right. We sat in that space for another 10 minutes. No more accusations, no more confessions. Just breath. Just the start of something that might someday become repair. Not redemption, not absolution, but repair. When the session ended, I stood first. I'm not saying yes to everything, I told them. I'm saying I'll consider what's real and what's safe. They both nodded. As I walked out of the office, I felt no victory. This wasn't a triumphant end to the story. It was a hard-won chapter in a book that still had pages to turn. Later that night, Alicia called. "How did it go?" she asked. I told her everything. The honesty, the confessions, the twist I didn't see coming, my father's fear, and how it shaped my entire childhood. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "It takes strength to hear that without letting it break you." It almost did, I admitted, but it didn't. There was pride in her silence. Before we hung up, she said, "You're doing something hard, Rachel. You're not just surviving it, you're meeting it head on." I sat on the porch after that, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea while the wind rustled through the hydrangeas Grandma had planted last spring. The night air smelled like rain and old wood and new chances. Maybe I'd never get the kind of family I once dreamed of, but I was building something better, a life that was honest, a life that was mine. The letters had stayed untouched for months, 5 of them, neatly stacked in the top drawer of my desk, tied together with a faded blue ribbon. I told myself I wasn't ready, that reading them might unravel everything I'd worked so hard to rebuild. But that morning, something shifted. Maybe it was the way the sun poured through the curtains, softer than usual, or the quiet in the house with Grandma out on a walk with a neighbour and Alicia at work. The silence felt full, not lonely. I sat down, heart thudding louder than I cared to admit, and untied the ribbon. I picked the letter dated closest to the sentencing. The envelope was thin, almost weightless, but when I slid the paper out, my hands trembled. "Rachel, I don't expect you to read this. Honestly, I'm writing it more for myself than for you. Prison has a funny way of clearing the fog. There are no mirrors here, not the kind that lie anyway, just truth. Unforgiving, harsh truth. For the first few weeks, I told myself you deserved what happened, that you stole Grandma's love, her house, her attention, that you were always trying to one-up me, but none of that holds up under fluorescent lights and mandatory group therapy. The truth is, I was jealous, not of what you had, but of who you were. You never needed the approval I craved. You had a stillness I hated because I didn't understand it. And when Grandma chose you, I snapped. I didn't push you for the house, not really. I pushed you because I couldn't stand the way you always made me feel like less, just by being yourself. I paused, throat tightening. It wasn't your fault, Rachel. None of it. I know that now, and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even think I deserve it. I just needed you to know that I finally see it for what it was. The house isn't worth it. It never was. Not if it meant losing the only sister I had. Vanessa. I didn't cry right away. I sat there for a long time just staring at the last line. Not if it meant losing the only sister I had. Not have. Had. That past tense struck harder than I expected. It wasn't just an apology, it was a eulogy for a relationship neither of us knew how to salvage. The tears came slowly, not in sobs, but in quiet streams down my cheeks. Not because I forgave her, but because for the first time someone in my family had taken full responsibility. No edits, no excuses, no blame shifting, just truth. And that truth broke something loose inside me. Not pain, not pity, just space, room to feel whatever came next. When Grandma returned, I didn't tell her I'd read it, not yet. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into a small wooden box on my shelf. Not hidden, not flaunted, just there, a part of the story, not the end. The sky was dressed in hues of orange and lavender, the kind of sunset that made you believe in second chances. I stood barefoot on the front porch, the old wooden boards warm beneath my feet. The house behind me buzzed with the gentle rhythm of evening, pots clinking in the kitchen, Grandma's laughter floating through an open window, Alicia humming something light as she prepped vegetables. It smelled like garlic and rosemary, comfort and home. I wrapped my cardigan tighter and stared at the horizon, letting the silence settle in my bones. I wasn't thinking about Vanessa. I wasn't thinking about my parents. I was thinking about the girl I used to be, the one who begged to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved without conditions. She would have given anything for a kind word from her mother, a nod of approval from her father, a moment, just one, where Vanessa didn't overshadow her. But now, standing in the glow of everything I'd rebuilt, I whispered the truth aloud for the first time. I choose me. The wind picked up slightly, carrying the words out into the golden distance like a promise. Finally, I added, quieter still, I've been chosen. By myself. Inside, Alicia called out, "Dinner in 10." "Coming," I replied, but didn't move just yet. Instead, I walked inside and made my way to the study. I sat at the desk, pulled open the drawer, and removed a single sheet of paper. Not one of Vanessa's letters. This one would be mine, addressed to my mother. "Mum, thank you for your effort these past months. I can see you've tried to understand what went wrong. I respect that work, and I wish you peace in your journey. But I also need something you may not understand. Distance, not out of spite, not as punishment, but as protection. I've spent too long rebuilding the pieces of myself that were shaped around your silence, your disapproval, your absence. And now that I'm whole, I intend to stay that way. So please don't contact me anymore. Don't try to find me in holidays or Facebook posts or forwarded emails. I am okay. And from now on, that has to be enough. Rachel." I folded the letter gently, placed it in an envelope, and set it on the entryway table for mailing. No anger, no final scream, just a boundary drawn in ink. As I walked back into the kitchen, Alicia smiled and passed me a plate. Grandma poured iced tea, her hands steady, her eyes kind. And as we sat at the table together, our laughter echoing against old wood and new memories, I realised something. This was my family now, not the one I was born into, the one I chose, and the one that chose me back.